Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host Valerie, coming to you from Moontower 2019. Miss Purrington, my co-host, is resting at home. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy and those passing through. We bring you articles, podcasts, album reviews, and live shows featuring the best in Austin comedy in all its shapes and formats. Launched in 2016, the podcast project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. And now, from Moontower 2019, we take you on location with our guest. Today, I am sitting down with somebody who was raised in New York, but by way of Mexico, moved to Canada during the Bush administration.
All true.
Someone who the Montreal Gazette described as fresh-cutting, one of the finest stand-up wits in the country, Canada, but also the U.S. and really kind of the world.
I'll take it.
And before I knew that I'd get a chance to even sit down with her, I'd already taken notice of her from the Netflix Comedians of the World Canada chapter with her special Gentleman Elf. And I fell in love with her even more when I watched Nerdy Love Song. This is a big callback. Nerdy Love Song with the added kitten video. How's the kitten, by the way?
Oh, the kitten was always a foster, so I just assume she's thriving as a full-grown cat in her new home.
And now my son has to hear me singing I Want to Be Your Abacus, because you can count on me.
Aww.
This is her first Moontower experience.
Yeah, it is.
Fantastic. And she is a well-traveled performer who's been in festivals all over the world.
This is true.
And now you're in humble Austin, Texas for 2019 Moontower. Wow. Comedy Wham presents our guest, DeAnne Smith.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Welcome.
Is it okay that I interrupted you during the intro?
Absolutely.
During the
yes.
intro?
I don't give any rules, really. There's very few rules to this.
Yeah.
So.
Humble Austin. I don't know. I've only been here for one day. Mm-hmm. Moontower is awesome so far.
Yeah.
I've had so much fun.
I don't think I've ever heard a comic complain about it because the organizers worked so hard at making it. They've described it this way to me, too. It's like a summer camp for the comics.
Yeah.
And there are some comics that I interview for this repeatedly every year, and they say, yeah, I look forward to this festival most of any because I know I can hang out with my friends who I don't always get to see on the road because we're, not intersecting when we're out on the road. And so, yeah. I hope you get to come back.
Yeah, me too. It's funny, cool I was only here for one day. It's funny how quickly you become, attached to things and, want to sink your hands in. Uh-huh. I only did 3 shows. Like I said, I've been here 24 hours, and I was like, I need to come back. Hell, they have me forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DeAnne, I like to ask my guests an icebreaker question.
Okay.
That is one word to describe your past.
Gosh, I don't know. Oh, my gosh, that's really tricky. First of all, let me start by saying I'm in a lot of therapy, so it shouldn't be that hard to dig in. My past, anything from, weirdly, the first word jumping to mind was I just want to be fun. So maybe I shouldn't question it.
Yeah.
Let me just let it be fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was funny watching the Canadians of Comedy show last night. I had been doing some homework on each of the comics, and some of them are, like Bonnie McFarlane, for example. She is Canadian, but now she moved to the U.S., and I feel like there's somebody else that had...
Nathan McIntosh lives in the U.S.?
That's right. That's who I'm thinking of. And then you were actually migrated the other direction.
Yeah, I was about to be anyone who really cares about their career...
moves to Canada.
Moved to the U.S. So I started comedy in Canada. So I still live there. So I'm honored to be considered a Canadian comic. And I do feel like that sensibility has infected? Oh, that's an interesting word. But I do feel like that's my sensibility. And I was really gratified when Netflix came out to have such a big opportunity coming from Canada, and in part because I stayed in Canada, was so weird because forever, ever since I started, everyone's move to the States, what are you doing? And when Canadians find out I am American and I have that passport, it blows their mind because all anyone wants to do is, get their visa and go to New York or LA. Yeah. But maybe because it's always been an option, I don't I don't value it too much, like making the big move.
You have, it's not an well, maybe for all my intents and purposes, you have an accent. And so from the way you have inflection, I would naturally think you are Canadian.
That's funny.
Like, do you think you've picked that up? You're looking at me like, I had no idea.
No, I am looking at you like I had no idea. But there's a pretty strong regional accent where I'm from in upstate New York.
Okay.
And I mean, we're not far from Canada. It's a few hours to the border.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't hear it for myself.
Yeah.
I do know that we have a strong regional accent because when I first moved to Mexico, I was maybe there for about 2 years before I went back home to visit. And it was the strangest experience where I was in the grocery store and literally every grown woman I heard, I thought was my mom. Like when I went home, because I didn't realize that my mom had an accent from our town until I went home after having not experienced it for so long. And it was the strangest thing because it's like you have a emotional reaction to your mom's voice. Your little heart goes, Mom? And so I'm like walking around the grocery store Mom? Oh, this is weird. So I catch myself having it every once in a while. But I think it's upstate New York. Yeah.
Okay. So you made this big move from where you had grown up to Mexico to Canada. And maybe it had just been that I happened to catch you talking on a podcast that you made the comment that you did this during the Bush administration. So you instantly make this was a political move.
I mean, it kind of was.
So, but you didn't start comedy until you were in Canada. What was your impetus for starting?
Oh, okay. So, first I moved to Mexico, and I used to be like really into poetry. That was part of what I studied in the university. So, I was living in Mexico, teaching English, and like writing a lot of poetry all the time, and submitting, and it wasn't exactly pre-internet, but I didn't have a laptop, so it was very fun. I'd email stuff to an ex-girlfriend, good friend of mine in New York, and then she'd print it out and mail it out, and then she would field all the like rejection and acceptance letters for me, which was very fun. So I never had like serious rejection letters. They would come through her and they'd be like, fuck these people, like, they said no, but they don't know what they're talking about. So then and the girlfriend I was living with in Mexico was an engineer, and she was turned on to like satellite radio before anybody else. That was like something her company was working on. So she brought back a CD of like burned comedy from satellite radio, and Maria Bamford was on there, a bunch of people. Maria stood out the most, and I had never heard her before. And she said, hey, like, I just bought this, maybe you could use this with your English classes, to help them understand English and do these short little things. And then it just completely like sparked and awakened this desire in me to do comedy. It was like I was like equal parts inspired and like angry listening to the CD. I'd say the Maria Bamford parts made me feel inspired, and like just a lot of the boring dudes, or I was like, oh, I can't believe people are like doing this. Like, it was just a really unique feeling. And then when we moved to Canada, which again, I was just before comedy, I was just following other people around pretty much. I didn't have much of my own like drive and desire. So my girlfriend at the time wanted to go to Canada to go to mime school, which you may have heard me talk about before. So that's why I moved to Canada, and then initially got into a creative writing program there to like pursue and continue with the poetry thing, and then ended up deferring that and started doing open mics, and then it was just, there was no turning back. I
often interview local Austin comics, and we always end up, I do always ask, what was that first open mic experience? With national and world famous comics. I don't tend to go into that, but you brought it up. How was that first open mic experience for you?
Yeah, it was funny. It was at a place in Montreal that's still there called the Comedy Nest. It was Wednesday nights. I maybe only gave myself a couple of weeks. I wasn't preparing for months or anything. And it was funny. I knew it was coming up all day, but somehow I like failed to like. I feel like I didn't take a shower that day or something. Like I just stressed myself out to the point that I ended up wearing like a hat on stage with me, like a winter hat, which is just so weird. And I don't remember any of my jokes. I remember that it went well enough that I didn't feel like completely humiliated or ashamed, or it went well enough that I was like, oh yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah.
But it was all the things I think other people's first open mics are. It's like you're up there, the lights are too bright, you can't see anyone, time flies by, you have no idea what you're doing, you get a few laughs and then you get off. Yeah.
When I watched your Netflix special, Gentleman Elf, I should mumble over my words, give you credit, Gentleman Elf.
Yes.
One of the things, and I know that's been written about, is you are so approachable and you are so nice. And when you told me just now that your background is in studying poetry, and then watching your show last night, I'm like, oh, there is a poetic element or feel to what you do on stage.
Oh,
because
man, that's cool.
You write these things and you're just, you give off this very sweet, kind, nurturing vibe, but then you do this pivot and you bite us.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that Netflix special, because it's like, oh, she's really good at that poetic. I was not expecting that turn, because you're
interesting.
kind of, we're dashing through the daisies.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's rainbows and unicorns and men.
That's interesting. I think I've heard this kind of feedback before. Like, it's not completely out of nowhere, but I don't think I know as much or evaluate what I do like other people do.
Yeah.
But early on, somebody told me that I had like a push pull with the audience.
Yeah.
Which I think used to be more severe. I'd like to think now it's more of a pull, like, bringing everybody in and we're having a conversation. But I used to do a lot of that, like, come here, everybody. Fuck you guys. Like, I think early when I was learning, I did know how to make audiences laugh, but I maybe wasn't doing it in the way that I felt good about yet. So I knew how to make them laugh, and then I'd like get mad at them for laughing at something so stupid. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I think that was an early like stage to kind of get through.
Being in Canada, complete dumb question here. I imagine there isn't the breadth of opportunity to perform like there is in LA or in New York. How did you step your way into being a global performer?
That's a good question. Well, I'll start by saying, and if I lose track of myself, remind me of the question, that I live in Toronto at the moment, and there are a ton of stages to get on in Toronto. And they're not all, what you might call, quote, quality stages. Like, maybe some of them, there's going to be 10 people in the audience, and you're just kind of practicing saying things the way you want to say them. But there are a lot of stages, and what's nice about that as well, what's nice about there being literally no stakes in Canada is that you're really free to experiment and try things out, and you don't feel the pressure like you do going up on stage in LA sometimes, where it's like, okay, gotta bring my A+ game every time because I'm on a lineup with absolute killers. I don't know who's in the audience, I don't know who's evaluating this, I don't know what potential opportunities could come out of this. So a flip side of there being almost literally nothing in Canada is that it's like you're just there to make people laugh and try things out, which is nice. And there is unfortunately this theme in my life where I started going to Australia because of a girlfriend at the time. Yeah, I'm always just following girls around. So that really turned out to be so fortunate for me. I was like, went over, I think I'd been doing comedy like only about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then I went over and did Adelaide Fringe, took a look at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, but didn't do a show in it, did Sydney Comedy Festival, and got exposed to, world-class comedy, and got exposed to the hour-long form that really wasn't happening as much in North America. It still isn't happening as much in North America. No. So I got to see all these amazing UK comics and Australian comics. And luckily, I was good enough that I just pulled it off that year. Like, I went, I did an hour. It was good enough to get people to notice me and not to turn their backs, But it could have been too early, and I could have gone over, hey, and everyone could have been like, oh, yeah, you're not good at comedy. We'll look at you again in 5 years. But just barely pulled it off. So I think going to Australia has helped me out a lot.
What an amazing launching pad.
Yeah, it's really cool. And when you think about, I always thought about the amount of stage time I'm getting. So I was 2 years in, and then suddenly I'm doing 50 minutes every night for, 3 weeks in a row. It's like, it would have taken me years to get that much accumulated time on stage in 5-minute increments at open mics.
And you seem like a very relaxed person, whether or not that's just because we're sitting here in this, nice, relaxing setting.
Yeah.
Like, how stressful was that for you to write? I mean, 1 to 2 years in, writing that much material?
I think I had it. It's interesting that you say I seem relaxed. I think I'm working very hard at it. I do have absolutely have anxiety and all this kind of stuff. But I have really been working on it, so I'm glad that I seem relaxed. But that's also one of my jokes when people ask me, like, how are you so comfortable on stage? And it's less true now, but it used to be more true, where I was like, well, I'm equally uncomfortable everywhere. So it's always like a show to be relaxed and to not be freaking out. I don't know how I pulled it off. I think there's a certain courage you have when you're new because you don't know everything, and it really works in your favor. I think I didn't realize maybe what could have gone, quote, wrong then. Like, I didn't know the stakes of what I was doing. So I cobbled together 50 minutes and went over and did my best. I was talking to someone recently about how she was a little farther along in comedy as well, and we were talking about how we found ourselves both getting a little bit less brave with things, and thinking back and going, I used to just try anything and say anything. And I think before you really have a taste of how it feels to do well, and before maybe you realize, like, oh, so-and-so saw me, and then I got this opportunity, and then, this is what could happen when you do well on stage. Before you really know that, I think you feel a lot more brave to try things out. So lately I've been trying to remember that and get back in touch when I'm trying new things with what it was to just throw things out there.
It's like that principle. I was watching the Josh Adam Myers has this podcast where he breaks down albums called The 500, and they were talking about this album by Def Leppard and how it was the 4th album, and you could tell that they were just trying to repeat the formulas of the previous albums where they knew they got these massive hits. And because I'm absorbing so much comedy and content, can't believe I said that.
It is content,
so much,
though.
so much over the last 2 days that I could see that some comics might get lulled into that, or they want to play it safe rather than remember, and I totally buy into you don't know what you don't know, so you take a lot more chances because you don't know what's going on. So now looking back, I mean, do you kind of pinch yourself that you got these really amazing opportunities that set you on this path? Because from what I can piece together, you've done Australia now almost every year.
I've done it a bunch. I haven't added it up, but probably about 9 times at this point I've been over there.
Yeah. And it's funny, when I listen to North American, that was a dumb thing to say, American, U.S. comics who get super excited because they're getting those opportunities to go to Australia. It's like, man, you're already at the top of your game and you're going to Australia, and then here's this model where now I went early. And now I've been able to do it every year, and it was
interesting though, because I really kind of snuck in the back door when people talk to me about how can I do that. I'm like, you can't, not like that. So I went and did Adelaide, and that's the second largest fringe festival in the world. Okay. It's Edinburgh and then Adelaide, and even that has changed dramatically in the past 10 years, where it's harder for. It's less fringy, It's more like there's big money, there's big promotion, there's big names, and it's harder to go over and kind of get noticed, and certainly really difficult to make money while you're over there. And then I got into Melbourne in a really fun way so the first year I just looked at everything. The second year I was there, I went and I put on 4 shows, not with the festival, but just at a venue that my friends ran called Tuxedo Cat. And I literally drew, I feel like it was very last minute. I think I didn't know that I was going to do Melbourne. And because I made hand-drawn flyers, literally just wrote out hey, come see DeAnne Smith, drew little pictures, photocopied it, cut them all up, And so I'm flyering people. And I think that alone stood out because everyone had these glossy, well-produced flyers. And I'm in front of Town Hall where everybody flyers and handing out these goofy little flyers. And I accidentally flyered the assistant director of the festival, who I think was like, what is this? Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, on our grounds? This is our time. Who are you with this rogue little independent show? And again, looking back, that could have gone very wrong. Yeah. They could have kind of blacklisted me or whatever, could have really stepped on toes, but for whatever reason it didn't. And somebody came to check it out, and then they invited me to go on the road show with them, which is their like traveling. They pick 5 comics and travel all around Australia to little theaters and stuff. So I got to do that before I had even really done the festival, and then I was kind of in. So it turned out great. Yeah.
How far into your career and how many times have you done Edinburgh?
I've only done it twice.
Okay.
I can't quite remember when. I think it was 2011 and 2012. I did it 2 years back to back. And I need to go back because I had wildly different experiences. The first year went great. And luckily I was able to appreciate it as it was happening, because people were saying, you know, like Edinburgh is so notoriously difficult on people. Physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. But tickets were selling really well. I got nominated for a little award. I forget what it's called, but maybe Moosehead or something. So there's like a little bit of recognition, good reviews. It was all happening. And then I went back the second year and had a horrible experience for a few reasons. Part of what happened, like I have to take some responsibility. Part of what happened the second year was I moved to like a bigger room, had a new producer, because the producers I went with the first year, who I loved, they just weren't going back to Edinburgh. So I had a brand new producer who really did not do her job. And she didn't do her job to the point that at the end of the run, she was like, I know I didn't do my job, don't pay me, which is unheard of. Yeah. But at the same time, it still hurt me that she didn't do her job, because I could have at least done her job if I knew. Like if I knew no one was gonna. So part of what happened was I had a press night early on, which is also like a privilege that you're having people from press come to your show when there's so many, like hundreds or thousands of shows during Edinburgh. So it was already like a step up and an advantage for me, which maybe I didn't realize as much. And then I was so mad because I came out on stage, maybe it was like a 70-seater or something, and there were literally like, I think there were 5 press people and my 2 producers in the audience, maybe a ticket or 2 sold. So I'm looking out at like 63 empty seats, which in my mind is like, just I'm looking out at money I'm losing. Okay, cool. So it's going to cost me however many hundreds of dollars to do the show tonight. And what I didn't realize, and this is where I kind of dropped the ball, because I was so mad at my producer for not filling the room, because that's part of what of your only jobs in Edinburgh would be like, just paper the room early on, get people in, get the good reviews going, and then let it take off. Right. So I'm looking out there, I'm so mad. And what I didn't realize is that all the reviewers there would be happy and willing to look through there being no audience. Because also in their mind, then it's like, oh, cool, I can like give this show some buzz, or no one's here yet, I'm the first one to know about it. Yeah. So, I mean, I did the show, but I was like, I had to be in one of the worst moods I've ever like performed in. Like I was just, ugh, you know. So I got a bunch of 3-star reviews, which was entirely fair. Super disappointing, but it wasn't a 3-star show, but it was a 3-star night, the way that I performed it. And so that was a huge lesson that I learned, was just like, just don't come to the stage with that attitude, you know, even if you have it, don't bring it. So those were my 2 really different Edinburghs. So that year, like, it was fine, you know, it ended up turning out okay, and people came, whatever. But early on, when you're getting a bunch of 3-star, you know, 3 out of 5, you can't do anything with that. And if I was I was going to say punter, but I don't think we use that phrase here, like a ticket buyer, customer, the audience member, a fan. Yeah. What do we call that?
Yeah, audience.
Yeah. But if I was
ticket
like...
buyer?
Ticket buyer? If I was looking for shows myself, I wouldn't bother with anything that got 3 stars, because like, why would I go see a mediocre show when I could go see, I could only pick 5-star shows and never run out. So I had really, really different expericies.
So you need to get back so you can kind of reset.
I think I should. I just think I should. But it's really tricky. Like, Edinburgh, man, it takes a lot out of you. It's really
it's
long.
It's a whole month, right?
Yeah.
I just,
and you lose your summer. I think it's like drizzly and cold. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a thought to one day brave going there as a fan, but
you never have?
No,
Then you should.
I get
Yeah.
exhausted from this long weekend of nonstop comedy, and I imagine, because I want to like totally deep dive nonstop shows, and I'm like, I will probably kill myself if I do a month of that.
No, go for a week.
Okay.
And then, like, if you can pace yourself, build in a couple of rest days or something. But yeah, if you've never gone, then you have to. Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on. There's this whole, like, clown scene that I'm really into. I know this. Here we don't.
You must know Stuart Goldsmith then.
Yeah, I do know Stuart. Yeah, and it's
not that he's a clown, but he started as a street performer. And a lot of that.
It's not the red nose typical clown stuff, but there's like just amazingly weird stuff going on in the UK. And
Scotland is actually on me and my son's vacation list. We punted this year, but it is on the horizon. And I thought about, should I try to time it for that?
Oh yeah,
you're selling me hard on this.
Yeah,
I think.
And your son likes comedy.
Oh yeah, I dragged him to.
I mean, you would just see so much. You could experience so much. Yeah.
Okay, well, back to you, DeAnne.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Let's do that. Okay, so Edinburgh, and then work, and then you get, and maybe this is just because this is the first time I took notice of you, this Netflix special.
Yeah.
And I've seen I know the cross-section of U.S. comics that they selected, and I can see why some of them were selected, and it created a sort of diverse image.
Did it? Two of those guys already had Netflix specials. I'm so mad about it. There are so many amazing, and not to say they're not amazing, but when you already freaking have a Netflix special, give it to someone else.
White guy, very popular, at least 2 Netflix specials. Come on. He's not hurting for notoriety, or not notoriety.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Anyway.
So, would you, since I'm learning about Canadian comedy, would you say that because I know Big Letterkenny fan, so I knew K. Trevor Wilson. Would you say that the Canadian chapter was trying to hit a diverse note, and where do you see yourself in the selection of comics that they?
Maybe I don't totally understand the question, but I'm going to jump in.
Yeah,
I'll jump in. Because I had been doing solo shows for so long, I think I would have felt really overlooked if somehow 4 Canadian comics got half hours and one of them wasn't me.
Yeah.
Which is a funny thing to say. I'm not usually like, I'm putting myself forward, but at the same time, like, I've been in Just for Laughs so many times, like, I knew that, like, for sure I'm capable of handling half an hour under that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, maybe not a ton, but there's definitely a lot of comics that they could have chosen to do those half hours. So I'm very happy that they chose me. I would have been a little bit upset if they didn't. But at the same time, I can imagine probably 20 people that they could have picked that really could have delivered. Whether or not they're trying to be diverse, I don't know. I mean, and I really don't know what kind of criteria they're dealing with, or like how they're choosing people. I don't know how much of it has to do with people being represented and pushed forward, or what. It would have been cool to have like 2, maybe just keep it at 2 men and then 2 anything else.
That was a glaring mismatch or lack of balance in the U.S. It's like one woman?
Yeah.
And you knocked out 2 categories with that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Netflix.
No, not sorry. I mean, people love to do that. They love to cast a black woman and go, check, diversity, and how about 3 white guys?
Yeah.
So, it would have been cool to see it a little more diverse, but I mean, I hope that I don't know if that series will continue, but it'd be really cool if then every year 4 new, new comics can step forward and have their moment.
I've dipped my toes into watching some of the other countries.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot by, that's so different than what could play in the U.S.
Yeah.
Which I think is the purpose of making something like that broadly available to watchers and viewers.
My buddies from Australia, 3 of the guys that they chose are represented by the same people that produce me when I go to Australia. So Nazim Hussain, Ursula Carlson, and Joel Creasy all got their half hours as well. And I did not envy them, like, what it is to fly to the other side of the world, have a day or two to recover from jet lag, perform for an audience you've maybe never performed for before. And people get in their heads about Montreal and they think everybody speaks French, which they do, but then they wonder how well are they going to understand my English. And so I felt really fortunate to be able to tape that in the city where I started comedy and with an audience that I knew really well. Thinking of those guys coming over and just being thrown into this thing.
So you've just blown my mind, because it did not dawn on me that all of these global comics did their performances in New York? Or in LA?
Not everybody did, but I think at least about 20 or so, like the UK guys, the Australia guys, us in Canada, and in, well, the US, I don't know where they did it, but we taped in Montreal last summer during the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival. I think they did something like 20-something of them there.
Oh, wow.
So they didn't always go to the country of origin and do it there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to find out, because you are this global performer and you're on this Comedians of the World. This is going to sound really, really bad as it comes out of my mouth.
Ooh, let's do it.
Did you get a bump? Because you're already world famous.
Oh, gosh, no.
So
I'm absolutely not world famous. Some people from different countries know who I am. But yeah, I did feel a bump. Not huge. I think it was maybe about what I expected. When they, there's so many specials on Netflix, and releasing 47 on the same day, you kind of know, like, this isn't going to be the biggest deal in the world. But yeah, definitely a lot of people reached out to me, and that was really fun for me to feel that people had a sense of, quote, discovering who I am. And yeah, that was really special. And to think that I know what I've been doing for a long time, but that some people hadn't ever seen, that particular, like, style of comedy, or someone like me doing comedy. So it was kind of like, whoa, what is this? And it's really cool to think, people could have that experience.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you feel? We're going to start wrapping up, but I want to find out.
Have we even gotten through half your questions?
I
talk so much.
I have my 2, like, foundational questions, and then everything else is just, like I said, I'll go where you go, and as I hear things, I might ask, but I don't. I mean, if I get in a real bind with somebody and they're not talkative, I have some, go-to questions.
1-point font on that paper. So cute.
Because I never imagined that I'm going to need to ask any of these questions.
So cute. Yeah.
What kind of opportunities do you see have come from being on that? And am I making too big of a deal about this Netflix special?
I think it only came out a few months ago, so I might not yet know what a lot of the opportunities are. I mean, I think probably the biggest thing that it did for me was really give me a greater sense of belonging and confidence in what I do. Just to be recognized at that level, and then have a kind of reinvigorating influx of people going, hey, I really like what you do, this is so cool, and it kind of inspires me, maybe I am doing something all right. So just on that, like, personal level, it's been really good. In terms of, like, great opportunities and what's out there, I don't know yet.
To be determined.
Yeah.
Well, I have to give a shout out to Bruce Smith, because he has given me some great opportunities to talk to some really amazing people, and I just, want to thank him. And I know that I was listening to another podcast. That's a recent connection that you have with Bruce.
Yeah, so let me talk about that. So I met him years ago at Just for Laughs. I would do Andy's. Maybe we met each other probably because of Andy's alternative show. And I remember one year, years and years and years ago, having just a gross meeting with some managers from the UK, or I guess I shouldn't say the company, but I'd have meetings with managers, and maybe I wasn't clear about what I wanted to do, but also the vibe I was getting off everybody was, like, not inspiring to me. It's a real divide, because you have, like, us on the artistic side caring about, like, creativity and expression, and then a lot of times on the other side it's not as much about that, and it's more about like money and marketing, and so that's like a real conflict. I remember I had this really gross meeting, and then I walked away from that, ran into Bruce in the lobby somewhere just for laughs. And he was like, oh, I'm going to go see something. Do you want to come with me? I'm like, yeah, of course. And so I went and sat with him, and we watched, I don't even remember what we watched, some panel or something during the day. And I was thinking the whole time, man, I wish I could just have a manager like this guy, like someone I could just hang out with that seems really nice, you know.
Did you know he was a manager?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
But it wasn't even like on the table that we would work together.
Yeah.
And then I did Last Comic Standing in LA, and he came out to watch and said hello, and was always for years was like, when you move to LA, let me know, like move to LA and then we'll talk, move to LA and then we'll talk. And then a couple years ago, my girlfriend got pretty drunk at a Just for Laughs party. She's very tall and very cute, and just kind of went up to, it was like 3 a.m. We were walking by Bruce on our way out of a party, and she just like put her hand down on the table, and she was like, so Bruce, when you say DeAnne should move to LA, what do you mean? And then so she kind of kicked off that conversation between us, and he was willing to take me on, even though I haven't yet moved to LA. So I was like, let's find a way to work with each other where maybe I don't totally have to move to LA yet. So he's angling for it. It'll probably happen. But yeah, it was really nice. And if it weren't for my girlfriend and so Bruce,
that's so funny,
we might not have kicked it off to the next level.
What a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been, I mean, I'm literally, this is a, tiny little upstart website and podcast, and he's just been nothing but nice to me.
That's
and
awesome.
given me opportunities to talk to amazing people. So, but he had mentioned your name, and I'm like, okay, wait, she's on this Netflix special. Oh my God.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah,
it was
nice.
really, really awesome. Before we wrap up with my final question, is there something that you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
Gosh, I don't know. I just want to make sure I haven't ruined this.
No,
okay, good.
no. Oh, you get a vibe.
Earlier,
I'd be going,
I know.
DeAnne.
Ooh. Yeah, earlier, like, you're so relaxed. And then I think I was, like, talking as if we were going to talk for 2 hours. And then I'm like, wow, I spent too long talking about Edinburgh. What am I even doing? I just want to make sure you're cool.
I'm totally. You've had, like, a lot of really good, meaty topics for people that are, comedy fans, and no, this has been fantastic. So is there anything you want to...
I mean, I don't have an agenda that I can think about.
All right.
As soon as we hang this up, I'll be like, God damn it, I should have mentioned this thing.
Can I put in a plug for should you ever find the need for a follow-up to Nerdy Love Song? I'd love for that to happen.
Oh my gosh, do you want something? Do you want something meaty? Do you want me to tell you something?
Yes.
This is truthfully meaty, and probably no one would like me to talk about it. So I haven't played the ukulele in a long time, really. Like I
haven't even dropped that knowledge. That's a big part of this video. Is your ukulele player?
Yeah. So I wouldn't really call myself a player, but I picked one up a few years ago and started like writing goofy little songs. And so this year during the Melbourne Comedy Festival, I was doing a gala spot over there, and they're kind of a big deal. They come out early in the festival, like usually the first week, so they really help you sell tickets. It's on like national television, and people can get a little sense of what you do and buy tickets to your show. And it's a really coveted spot. It was like the 3rd year in a row that I'd done it, and because I did Netflix recently, and things have changed. It used to be that you'd do a short spot, in Australia, and then not think twice about it in terms of having like burned your material. You'd be like, yeah, whatever, that aired in Australia, but I'll do it for a special that will air in the US, like no problem. But now that everything is so global and the internet exists, things have really changed. So when I did Netflix, it really kind of shocked me and maybe kind of stressed me out that it was like, this stuff needs to have never aired anywhere. And I was like, oh, well, I've been like just cannibalizing little 4-minute chunks of my material for years. So this year in Melbourne, I was like, you know what? I don't want to burn anything that's still kind of new, that I know is only going to get stronger in a year or in 6 months. And I've really like gone through the back catalog in terms of what I can do. I'm like, I'll do a song. I'll dust off the ukulele, and I really have not played in about 4 years. Like whatever, I'll remember, sense memory, muscle memory, no big deal. So I I had a song online before called We're All Gonna Die, or I called it the Die Song.
Okay.
Anyway, so just a few weeks ago in Melbourne, I'm like, I'll do this song, it'll be great. And so I'm up there, and I was so nervous that day. Like, I practiced, but not like for months beforehand, literally just like 2 days before. I'm like, I got this. And then I got up there, and it's a theater of maybe 1,500 people. Everybody's there. And I was right into the song, and within the first like 40 seconds of the song, really screwed it up. Like, I just looked down, and my hands were in the wrong place. Like, they weren't on the right chord that they needed to be for what I was saying. And I didn't know, excuse me, I didn't know how it happened. So I was like, oh God. And the whole thing's being taped, and it's like, it's going to go for 4 more minutes. How have I screwed it up this bad? I'm not listening, because I'm not a real musician. I don't have any like fallback. So I have no idea how it sounds. And I'm like, oh my God. So I did unprecedented. I just tried to stay calm and cool, and I knew it was being taped. I know they can edit, and I go, you know, guys, I really screwed up. Let me just do that part again. You know, little giggle, and then got a little extra giggle by going like, and this time, why don't you pretend you like me more? Okay, haha. All right, let's start over. Then I start over, and I screwed up in the exact same way again, not knowing how. So the next 4 minutes are me, like. People say you can't really tell. You can if you know me. Is like just pure panic in my eyes. I'm just like, just trying to deliver this thing, thinking about my like, when are my hands going to betray me again? How did it screw up so bad? When is it going to? So I'm like scared off the ukulele. Is all I'm trying to say about that. But it was a crazy experience to really screw up that hard on what could be like a big deal of a gig. Yeah. People claim you can't tell they edit it together like kind of nice, but it was like, it was a nightmare. So when am I going to do a follow-up to Nerdy Love Song? I don't know.
All right, well.
I need to, me and the ukulele need to regain our trust together.
Maybe you could do couples therapy. How about that?
Yeah, maybe.
All right, DeAnne, I'm going to wrap up with my closing question.
Okay.
1 word to describe your future.
Ooh. Let's just say open. That was the first thing I thought of.
Nice. All right. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham Presents DeAnne Smith. Did you want to explore that?
I want to ask you, what's 1 word to describe your future? Yeah, see how hard of a question it is?
That's why I'm on this side.
Yeah, just do it. What comes to mind?
Loving?
Say loving?
I think so.
I love it.
Because,
yeah.
you know, I think automatically of my son.
Yeah.
I just want to love him. You know.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us where we can find you on social media and promote any shows, projects that you want us to know about, DeAnne.
Well, I have a website, DeAnneSmith.com, which now that I say it out loud, I should update my shows. You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram, and I believe both of those are DeAnne_Smith. If you just Google me, I'm lucky to be the most successful DeAnne Smith out there. So it'll take a minute before you don't find me if you Google me.
Very good. We hope you've enjoyed learning about how DeAnne got to be the comedic genius that you heard today just as much as I have.
Genius.
Be sure to visit ComedyWham.com. Give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram at ComedyWham, and like our Facebook page. You can listen to past interviews on iTunes or your favorite podcast player and review us while you're at it.
5 stars only.
5 stars only. This has been Comedy Wham Presents DeAnne Smith. I'm Valerie. That's been funny. Thank you, DeAnne.
Thank you.